Hello, my name is Mark Roden and I'm the founder of Ding.
In 2006, inspired by a conversation with a waiter at a restaurant in Dubai, Mark Roden founded Ding, a first-of-its-kind platform which accelerated mobile access in emerging markets. This enabled foreign workers abroad to instantly send value or top up the mobile phone of family and friends back home. Since then, Ding has grown to become the largest mobile top-up platform in the world and earned Mark Roden the EY Entrepreneur of the Year overall award in 2014.
I grew up in a medical family, I guess. My dad was a doctor, his father was a doctor also. Around the dinner table or whatever, it was typically medical stories, and there wasn't really much talk about business. And so when finishing school, my natural, thought was, why don't I try medicine? I didn't get it. I got dentistry. I didn't want to do dentistry. And then I did marketing. Well, I think marketing was always something I was naturally interested in. I always remember we had, magazines in the house. I remember leafing through them. They were fashion magazines or, it was an area that I just found the ads really interesting. I then moved into McConnell's advertising and then got exposed to the whole world of consumer brands and creating ad campaigns. I then moved to market research and again, more exposure to consumer goods. But after a couple of years, I felt, boy, is this it? If this is going to be, my future, I really need to get stuck in here and accelerate. And so I said, I'm going to go to business school. And I decided if I was going to go to business school that I would need to, make it a completely immersive experience. And I chose a school called IMD in Switzerland. And it was an intensive program, but it was probably the first time where I was mixing with a whole bunch of really ambitious people. We were working on case studies from all over the world, industries from cement to drinks distribution, and it was just massively exciting. After business school, I went to London and started working in management consulting, and I was back home in Ireland for a wedding of a friend. I met Dennis O'Brien, who I knew a little bit, not too well, and he asked me what I was up to. I said, I'm working in management consulting. And he said, do you want to start a telecoms company? And I said, Dennis, I know absolutely nothing about telecoms. And he said, nor do I. And I was immediately struck by the sheer, scale of this ambition. It was unlike anything that I'd experienced. And this is the early 1990s in Ireland. And I said, I just have to work with this guy. Working with Dennis is like sticking your fingers into a plug, an electric plug in a wall. It absolutely grabs you and throws you forward. You probably, realize that you can do more than you believed yourself. And it was an immensely, rewarding experience, incredibly tough. No certainty that there was going to be success. Lots of obstacles like there are in any business. Ours were significantly regulatory, trying to get approval from the European Commission for competition to be introduced into Irish telecommunications because there was only one monopoly provider. And eventually by, hammering on the doors in Brussels over several years, they mandated that Ireland should introduce competition, and that was the start of ESAT. It's easy to look back and say it was straightforward and smooth water. It was anything but that. The reality is the right decisions were made along the way over several years around creating and building an asset that would be very attractive and generate a lot of returns, which ultimately it did. Off the back of what was a huge success in ESAT, I was very sure that I wanted to create my own business and start my own business. That was the right ambition. I just picked the wrong idea. And it's incredible, when you're part of a winning team, it's kind of easy to look really good. But then when you go out on your own, you find that, it's quite a lonely place, and you really need to be, on your game in every aspect. When you look at what had happened with the success of ESAT and then the failure of Telecom at the time, there's lessons to be learned. And I firmly believe that you learn more lessons from failure than success. And I just picked the wrong idea. It wasn't defendable. We achieved some scale. I acquired another business out of receivership in London, and it had, inherent problems, which ultimately were a result of me not doing enough due diligence. The combination of the two meant that there was insurmountable problems. And 12 months after the sale of ESAT, I had to put these two companies into receivership. And that was a pretty humbling moment, because 12 months previously, a year before, it was all about success. And then a year later, it was the opposite story. After the failure of Torque, I then noticed in Dublin, I was walking down Grafton Street actually, and I noticed queues of people waiting for cash. And I couldn't understand, why there was always queues for cash for ATMs in Ireland. And when I approached the banks, they said, no, there's no need for more cash ATMs because everyone's going to moving to plastic and using debit cards. So I then went over to London, and I saw that cash ATMs were everywhere. They're in supermarkets, in pubs and petrol stations. And so I came back and started Easycash with the support of Permanent TSB, and ultimately Ulster Bank acquired the business in 2005. After that, I celebrated by flying to Dubai with my three very young daughters and my wife, Nicola, and we were going for a holiday. I wasn't looking for a business opportunity. I was looking to celebrate the sale of Easycash. And I remember one day Nicola said to me, could I grab her a cup of coffee? We were down, as you do, down at the pool. And so I went back into the hotel, and I met a waiter. In the course of the conversation with them, we just got chatting about families. And then I was asking him what led him to Dubai. He was from India. And so, the conversation flowed, and asked him, how did he send value back home? He said, and he whipped out of his pocket a card, which was a Telecom's card from an Indian mobile operator. And he said he would text the PIN from that to his wife in Bangalore, and in a few seconds he'd be able to get value home. If you have a natural inquisitiveness and interest in other people's lives and what's going on around you, they're actually good tools for business as well, as it turns out. I asked him where he bought his this card, and he told me about a store near where he lived in a dark part of Dubai. I went with him that evening, and he showed me this store where there was literally hundreds of thousands of these cards all over the place. And I then realized that this need that this waiter had to share value back home was something that was commonly shared by thousands of foreign workers all over the world. And I thought we could do this differently. And we could, instead of it being on a card, we could do it digitally. I could have just finished that conversation with the coffee and gone back to Nicola. But instead, I guess I was interested in why he was in Dubai and how he was sending value home and what he showed me, and then bringing my own experience from telecoms relating to that. And I think it's the combination of your own experience plus what's right in front of you. And you have a choice. You can take the coffee and go back about your day, or you can say, this is really interesting. I'm not sure it's a business opportunity, but it is interesting, and I'm going to ask a few more questions. And that was the start of Ding, and here we are today. So Ding today is operating in over 100 countries. we're connected to 550 mobile operators that reach half the world's population. And that means that anyone in the world can send value to 6 billion people. It's grown from working with just one mobile operator in India 17 years ago to the scale it is now. We employ 250 people all over the world, and we're the largest international mobile phone top-up company. Something that I've always carried with me is, don't walk past something that you can improve for the better. And this can apply to as much to emptying the dishwasher at home, or to, making something really unique and different in your business. And that could be a marketing campaign. It could be helping somebody who you walk past. And ultimately, what you want to do is to improve people's lives or improve your day. And in the case of Ding, we do feel that what we do is improving people's lives. It's very easy to start a business and for it not to be truly addressing a real need. I don't think it's enough just to have a good idea. Ideas are easy. Building great businesses is a totally different ballgame, because it involves taking something that is a good idea and that's like, a shooting star, whereas a really good business is something that builds day after day, month and after month, and year after year. So after you come up with the idea for a business, then executing it and making it happen is really what creates a great business, because ideas are often plentiful. Good ideas, not so much. Unique ideas are very rare. Most businesses, I would see, are great businesses. They're not necessarily unique businesses, but that's okay. It's okay to have a great business, so long as you execute really hard, you make decisions quickly, you get up early, you work late. The success of a good business is down to simple hard work and putting yourself in the game. It doesn't matter that you don't have a unique competitive edge in every part of the business. But if you're that little bit better in the key areas, you will start to build scale and volume and ultimately value. If you go back earlier, those great businesses come from someone who founded the business. And I think often the founder is, over glorified, and the people who make a real success of the business are not given enough credit. I'm always interested in this idea that founders are somehow, uniquely brilliant at identifying great talent to work in their companies. The reality is that they are not. Most founders are not great at coming up with the right mix of experience and talent to really grow the business. And I speak for myself in this case as well. There's a number of times where intuitively you pick someone and it turns out to be the wrong decision. And founders perhaps overly estimate their own ability to pick the right talent for the right role. And that's where I think great CEOs come in. I think the attention, the diligence that they put in really understanding what the right role is, and then going out to find the right people for that is a skill. And most founders simply don't have the patience for it. I think both need each other. The founders need people to really execute well, because often, and speaking in my own case, we don't have the patience for what's required to build a great business. But very often people who are executing each day in the business, don't actually found the business. That doesn't make one better or worse than the other. And there's this symbiotic relationship between founder and executives. I think the really interesting part of this, though, is at what point does the founder feel that it's time to step off, the bike and give somebody else a go. And I think this is something which is estimated, particularly by founders, because they are the ones who ultimately, if they have started the business, decide when the leadership changes happen. If I look back on the course of Ding, I think that there was one or two times where I really felt, I wish somebody else was the CEO. And, it's not possible to do that, until the business has reached a certain scale and value, because investors follow passion. And when businesses are at their early stages, the investors won't invest in a guy who they don't feel is going to be really driving the business every minute of the day, 365 days a year. I am immensely proud of what we have built in Ding, but every business, I think every founder is probably not being honest if they say that they created and grew the business themselves. It comes from, finding the right people to work on the idea, making wrong decisions, correcting them, and, really making more right decisions than wrong ones. But every business faces obstacles. The challenges are never ending. I think the key attribute that a founder has is the confidence that he or she gives everybody else in the room that they're not stopping, no matter what the obstacle is. It's like being in battle. If you're in charge of a big group of troops, in a battalion, and they're looking to you for leadership and you look scared, they're going to be scared. You cannot look scared. You just have to keep going and give them the confidence that it's going to be okay. I think every business that someone founds has a founding idea or one service that they start with. And if some traction and scale has been achieved, the tendency to start another direction or product initiative can be quite compelling. That can be, often the wrong decision, because at its earliest stage, a business that has just one service getting off the ground is when it's most vulnerable. Strategy is as much about what you don't do as what you do. And this is really important because you then save the attention and efforts and resources and the whole emphasis that you as the CEO are driving people to do. If you're pushing them in lots of different directions, it's like, having a horse and carriage and you have 6 horses and you're giving them all separate instructions. It's not going to work. The more you can drive people in the same direction, encourage them to build one really good service, especially in the early days and years of a business when you're at your most vulnerable, is really important. The satisfaction of starting your own business and running a business is immeasurably different, I think, to actually working in a business. I think we are very fortunate, and the way to repay that, I think, is having, a self-awareness and humility to the people who work with us and acknowledging the contribution that they make. Of course, you're going to have arguments, you're going to have differences, you'll have different takes, but ultimately, you're the founder, you're the leader, you make the calls. There's nothing worse than being arrogant about that. I think you have to do it with the best information and a humility, as well, to acknowledge that you might screw up and you might make mistakes. And if you do, go back and find that person and say, I got that wrong. Because if you do that, you're going to build trust and respect with them. They will not always agree with the decision. That doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, I think it's really important to create the best atmosphere you can, where people are working and spending time and making choices to come and work with you each day. And that's not something any of us should take for granted. An entrepreneur can have a great idea or a unique idea, which will remain just an idea unless he or she is able to attract great people around who share the same ambition and desire to make a success of that. It's very difficult to do that on a Zoom call. I think expressing this in terms of working from home or working in the office is already drawing the lines in the wrong way. It's much more about, do you want to be part of something special? Do you want to create something unique in your work life? Do you want to be part of something that you will look back on in many years and say, I was part of something that was so exciting and enabled us to build something really special. And I did it with these guys and girls, and it was the best part of my working life. It's just very difficult to make somebody feel special, feel really part of something if it's on a Zoom call. And I think ultimately we're going to see that the businesses that succeed have the culture and enthusiasm and drive of people who are working together in one place. That could be in a global sense in offices, but I think it's very difficult to do that from home. I accept it's not for everyone, but it's the way I am. I won the Entrepreneur of the Year in 2014, and it was a complete shock because it was an award for a business which I'd started in 2006. I'd no sense that this was going to ultimately realize, winning the Entrepreneur of the Year. And I think we're all competitive. So once we all get in the room with other people who are starting and operating great businesses, you tend to, you want to win it. When I look back and reflect on it, I don't think winning it is the most important part of being part of the EY experience, because winning it is just at a point in time. And awards are not necessarily the only way to say a business is incredibly successful. What's more important is being part of the EY network, because starting and creating businesses, founders can do up to a point, and then they need a dig out or a hand, or sharing a problem or looking for help. And there isn't a day that goes by that I don't see on the WhatsApp group in EY some founder reaching out with or raising an issue that they're experiencing difficulty in, and within a couple of hours there'll be 10 or 20 responses from people offering for no charge whatsoever advice or a solution to what that problem is. And I think that's massively valuable. I think it's really, really important, because all of our businesses need help, and being able to access a network like the EY alumni is just, I think that is phenomenal.